Okay, so today I'm going to tie for you a Royal PMX. I've tied, this is my second one, so we'll tie the third one for you guys. It was a little bit of a request from a buddy of mine on Instagram to show you guys how I would tie one, so here it goes. So the hook I'm going to be starting with is a TMC 5262. Now this is a heavy nymph hook, but after kind of looking up this fly and seeing Charlie Craven tie it, he says one of the issues with it is it actually landing on the water correctly, and if you have a heavier hook, that point wants to pull it down and have it sit right so you don't have to twitch it after it gets on the water. And if there's anybody I'm going to believe on what you should tie on, it's going to be Charlie. You can also tie them on, say, like a 200R, but I'm going to go with how Charlie did it. So I'm going to start my Veevus 50 denier GSP thread. And I like to use GSP whenever I'm messing with hair because I can really get a good, tight binding whenever I cinch that stuff down to the hook. The post material that I'm going to be using is Macrame yarn, and I believe this color is Ivory. So I don't have like a pure white. It's just like a little off shade. Now, does that really matter? No clue. What I'm doing here is I'm taking it and I'm using a popsicle stick with some Velcro on the other side of it to just brush this out. And that will untangle all those hairs and make them nice and fluffy. This is just one of the strands. Normally whenever you start pulling them off, they're all in this big ball. If you just get one of those strands and you can pull it from the full set, then you've got what you need to tie a fly. So I'm going to start about 3 hook eyes back. I'm going to give it 3 good wraps, and I'm going to rotate it perpendicular, and I'm going to go 3 wraps the other way. So 1, 2, 3. So you've kind of made an X, right? You've kind of made your X wraps on top of the hook to bind that down, and then I'm going to pull that macrame up, and that'll be where I start to begin to post this material. Now the thing with GSP and this macrame is if you pull hard all the way through, what you'll end up doing is bending that macrame and it'll jump off, and all your wraps will want to slide off and just completely come off. So what I do is I only pull whenever I grab that tip, and then I can tighten down. So I get my wrap, then I pull tight. Then I get my wrap, then I pull tight. So I'm going up just a little bit. I'm just trying to get this in here. I'll make it a little bit better whenever we tie the hackle in. Okay. Now that's done. Bring this all the way back, and we're going to tie our tail in. Now I'm using Compara cow elk for the tail. This is a Nature Spirit material. I really love this stuff. And there for a while I couldn't get it, so whenever it came back in stock, I bought like 3 of these things. This stuff is just amazing. I really like it. One thing you want to make sure of whenever you're tying with any kind of hair is you want to get all that fluff out right there, all that under fur. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold just the tips. That's what I want to tie in, just the tips, and I'm going to use a brush, or you can use your fingers, but I like to use my brush in order to get all of that material out so that we're not tying that into our fly. Because our fly doesn't need that under fur. Try and get it really good and clean. The cleaner the better. Now I'm going to use a little hair stacker. Stack it back here so I don't shake the camera. There's our tail. Okay. Oh, got one hair, doesn't want to agree with me. You're out of here. All right, so tail's going to be about a third of the body. So about like that, about a third of the body. And there's a little bit of a weird thing you're going to do with this tail. So we're going to start it right on top. So 1, 2, 3, and those are going to be in order. So I'm moving forward on the fly to kind of get like a little band. Then I'm going to hold that on top because that thread torque is going to want to pull that over. So I'm going to put my nail right on the top, and then I can squeeze just slightly. And bang, there's our nice tail. Now from here, this is what I learned from Charlie, and it's actually kind of cool. It's the first time I had seen something like that. You're going to kind of pull all that hair back, kind of get it out of the way. And you're going to jump your thread in front. So go underneath, jump that in front. If I can get it stroked back. Come on. Right up to your index point. Then you're going to pull all this stuff around your post. And we're going to use this to basically create a nice body to our fly. If I can get all this macrame out of there. This is the one thing that, even though I love macrame, I hate it. It's difficult. It can be difficult to work with. It can be very difficult. Okay, we're going to try to envelop the hook with the butt ends of this hair. And then nice loose wrap, 2, 3, and then you can kind of pull tight and start working your way back. And do nice loose wraps heading back to the tie-in point for that tail. Then from there, it's going to be some trim work. Gonna come in and start lopping off that excess hair. And since I didn't tie that hair down ahead of that index point, I still have that hook gap length to make sure that I'm not crowding my eye. So whenever you start your flies, start with that index point. Use a different pair of scissors so my nice tips don't get beat up on that hook. All right, good enough. Good enough for government work. Okay, so from here we're going to use Peacock eye. Going to use about 4 strands. Going to line those up, cut the tips out. Line those up here on the side, pull it down, tight. gonna head up to about the hook point where your thread wants to hang past that hook point. So maybe one more. And don't worry about whenever you were bringing your thread down, just do open spirals until here, because we're gonna, as we move forward, we'll then make a nice smooth body. That way we kind of save some thread wraps. So we're just gonna tie this in up to that index point. Tie that off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now from here, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my Danville's floss here. Usually it comes in, 3 or 4 strands like that. You just gotta pull them apart here. Cut them equal. Since this is a royal, I'll make it royal. So as I tie that in, I'm gonna make touching wraps moving forward nice and tight to make a nice smooth base for this floss to cover all the way up to the back of the post. So a nice smooth base. And it looks a little lumpy, so I'm gonna come back. That's the power of that camera. You can really see every little detail. That's a little better. Okay, so from here, now one little trick of this floss is to stroke it back like this, because it'll want to ball up on you a little bit or twist up on you. And if every time you make a wrap, you just take your time and kind of give it some strokes, it will flatten out for you and make a nice body. And I use 2 strands on this. And we'll get away with one more. Okay, so from there, we're going to tie in our wing. I'm going to use the same material, a Compara cow elk, a little bit more than what I used for the tail. We're going to tie in a little bit differently than we did the tail itself. We're not going to be doing any kind of crazy loop this thing around the entire hook. Which, when I saw Charlie do that, I thought that was pretty cool and pretty slick, so I, of course, had to try it. Really want to clean that hair out good. Into the hair stacker. Okay, we want this wing to extend out about to the tail. So what I'm doing is I'm switching from hand to hand here, a pinch to a pinch. And I'm getting my material hand, my thumbnail, to exactly where that length is that I want. And then I will use that as my index point to cut. So I just switched hands. And so now I'm gonna cut this straight off flat. So you gotta make sure you get your measurement right, because if you don't get it right, you just messed everything up. If you err it on the long end, you can go back and make it better, but if you err it on the short, you're kind of done. So I'm gonna stack this hair right up next to that post. I'm gonna make 1, 2, 3 wraps. I'm gonna pinch the dog out of it and then cinch it down. And then come forward through all of that, cinching that thing down. And boom, you've got a nice pretty wing. Now to help keep that wing out of the way, because you'll be fighting that sucker all day, I got myself a little piece of 020 or 025 lead wire. And I'm just gonna give it a couple of wraps around that hair wing, and boom, it's out of the way. And I can kind of bend that lead wire back, and that keeps that hair out of the way in order for us to be able to tie the rest of the fly. If not, we'll be fighting that stuff all day. Okay, so then the next thing is going to be our X, because this is a PMX. I'm going to use some MFC barred Sexi-Floss in 10, the small size. I don't have the fine size of the medium brown rubber legs, so Sexi-Floss it is. So I'm going to tie the far side first. One, two, three. And since I got that nice camera, I can actually see where it's at. If you need to adjust it, you can. It's all good. Here in a minute, I'll take that wire off and I'll put my legs back in there in just a second. Now I'm going to tie my near side. 1, 2, 3. Get that exactly in line. I don't like how that went. So you can see this Sexi-Floss has a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm trying to tie that curve to where it's out, so my legs splay out. And I tied it in on the incorrect side. The legs didn't sit right. There. Okay, so from here, we go back to our Peacock. No, wait, we don't. I'm gonna take my lead off. We're gonna tie in our hackle. So I'm gonna move these, I'm gonna bump these legs back, jump forward, and we're gonna tie in our hackle. So I'm gonna take this wire off. Well, sorry about that, my battery died, but pumped a new one in and we're ready to go. Alright, so I'm gonna grab my legs, pull everything back. Boom. Now we're going to tie in the hackle. So I've just got a nice whiting hackle here in brown. I'm going to measure it just a little bit longer up that post because I'm going to go up that post a little bit further. So from here, I start at the front of this fly. Start to cover that up. And then I'm going to start going up my posts. Just as we normally would do. A little further than normally would, and then down we go. And as you can see, I've inverted my bobbin here. That's what I'm using to get these wraps taken care of. I'm gonna bend that forward, so I can clip it off close. Okay, now from here, I've got to let my legs go. I know this wire seems like a lot to deal with, but keeping that hair out of the way is huge. It really is huge. Make sure everything's right. We're looking good. Now we're going back to our ostrich Herl. Get those pieces prepared. Now I'm tying my ostrich Herl. 1, 2, 3, 4. Work my way back up. Move all that macrame out of the way. So 1, 2, get 3 in there. Move those legs out of the way, then jump forward 1, 2, 3 in front. Capture it with 1. 2, 3. Lean them all back. I'm going to go ahead and build my thread head because I'm not going to tie off up here at the front. You still want a thread head for it, but I'm going to tie off on the post. So since I bent those back, I'll kick them forward. Kick those forward and cut them off. Just like that. Now, go back to your lead. Pull your legs back. This is going to keep that wing out of the way of our hackle. So our hackle's got to go all the way around, so we're going to keep everything out of that way. Now I'm tying right-handed, so I'm going to come up from underneath, go over the top, and then do my spiral. 1, 2. Going back to the eye to tie off, you always, if you're right-handed, you have to go under the fly. And to me, I'd much rather the underside of my fly be clean rather than this top portion, because the fish really isn't going to see the top. You know, their eyesight's from the bottom up. So from here, I'm going to start my hackle nice and high. Good, nice concentric wraps. This is 3, 4, 5. I think I can squeak one more in. 6. And I'll invert my bobbin again, keep it low, and tie that off. So 1, 2, 3, and drop it on my side. Then what I'll do is I'll angle this sucker with its butt end up, grab my whip finish, and do the same thing. Try and miss all those fibers. 1, keep it low. 2, 3, 4. Nice 4-turn whip finish. And then I can hold that post, pull it tight, angle this sucker back up. Hopefully you guys caught that. We'll follow where that went. Give it a cut. Cut my hackle out. Undo my wire. Position my legs before I cut them. We'll take the back ones. I'm gonna cut them just a little bit longer than the hair there. I'll take my front ones, cut them just a little bit longer than the hackle there. And then take my post, make it nice and stubby. Last but not least, come in with a shot of head cement where you tied the hackle off. I'll soak into that post and help keep it straight. And boom, you have a Royal PMX. And there you go. Please let me know what you guys think. I know it's complicated, and there's probably a better way to tie it, but that's how I'm doing it. You guys have a good one.